Have you ever had the opportunity to observe a figure of power with their confident gaze, measured gestures, and a tone of voice that conveys authority, and wondered how they could have reached such a high position? You do not do this out of envy or cynicism, but rather because of a sense of inner dissonance, that subtle discomfort that arises when you sense that something is amiss. Why, so frequently, at the top of hierarchies and power structures, do we not find the brightest minds, the fairest souls, or the deepest individuals? Why does excellence seem to remain on the margins while arrogance manages to dress itself in the garb of a leader? These questions are not simple rhetorical inquiries. They represent an unresolved knot that afflicts the heart of our contemporary society. To attempt to answer these questions, it is necessary to take a step back in time, to reach a thinker from the 1500s, often misunderstood but surprisingly relevant, Niccolò Machiavelli. His reflections, both harsh and clear, do not celebrate malice, as many mistakenly believe, but rather unmask it. They show power for what it truly is, not for how it ideally should be, and offer us a mirror, hard but essential. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you seem. Few feel what you are." This phrase, seemingly simple, is in reality devastating. The political reality, and more generally the social one, is built on perceptions. Truth, with all its complexities and nuances, often becomes irrelevant compared to appearance. Here emerges a modern paradox, also confirmed by psychology. Authentic intelligence, especially when united with integrity and awareness, can become an obstacle to ascent. On the contrary, bold mediocrity, devoid of hesitation and doubt, fits perfectly into the language of power. A study conducted in 2017 revealed that the correlation between intelligence and leadership is positive only up to a certain point. Beyond an IQ of 120, the effect reverses. Individuals with higher intelligence, too brilliant, reflective, or analytical, may come across as difficult, distant, and cold. Humility transforms into hesitation, critical thinking translates into ambiguity, and doubt, which is the engine of personal evolution, appears as weakness. In a social context that rewards simple and immediate responses, those who doubt waste time, and those who reflect deeply risk falling behind. In 1999, two American psychologists, David Dunning and Dunning-Kruger, theorized an effect that we can sadly observe everywhere today. Those who are incompetent tend to overestimate their abilities, while those who are truly competent tend to underestimate themselves. This dynamic represents the triumph of illusion over evidence. In the context of power, this illusion can become a kind of law. Thus, we see figures who speak confidently even when they do not know, who offer certainties even in uncertain situations, building consensus not thanks to who they are, but rather to who they seem to be. It is not just a matter of personality. It is the system itself that develops an allergy to complexity. Modern media, whether traditional or digital, amplify the voices of those who shout, simplify, and divide. Platforms reward assertive content, slogans, and certainties without considering their truthfulness. What appears strong and convincing on the surface is not always so in substantive and profound terms. The real problem does not lie only in those who manage to conquer power, but also in what happens once that position is reached. Often, those who have built an infallible image do not tolerate those who dare to question that image. Thus, They surround themselves with loyal followers rather than capable individuals, with reassuring mediocrities rather than brilliant minds, with reflective mirrors rather than independent and critical voices. Machiavelli expressed it plainly. The first way to know the intelligence of a prince is to look at the men around him. And today, observing certain positions of power, both in the business and political realms, we ask ourselves, is this truly the best we can achieve? This is not a casual degeneration, but a precise design, whether voluntary or not. Power tends to protect itself from excellence, as the latter represents a threat. True competence is dangerous. It poses questions, demands transparency, and requires honesty. All of this, in certain contexts, becomes a threat to the system. This is not an exception, but an unwritten rule that has traversed epochs and latitudes. From Roman senators to today's CEOs, the logic does not change. Those who know too much, who think too much, and who say too much, must be isolated. It is preferable to have a mediocre ally than a brilliant but uncomfortable collaborator. This scheme becomes particularly dangerous in times of crisis. When reality becomes complex, the need for simple and immediate answers grows. In such situations, mediocre power is able to offer solutions that, although wrong, are reassuring. The human mind, when under stress, tends to prefer a comforting illusion over an uncomfortable and difficult truth to confront. In those moments, charisma takes precedence over competence. The tone of voice becomes more relevant than the actual content. A confident face weighs more than substance and truth. But there is a cost to pay, and this cost is significant. The cost is represented by truth, critical thinking, and authentic and lasting progress. While illusion gains consensus, real problems remain unresolved, grow, take root, and ultimately explode. It is in those moments that the difference emerges between those who have built on smoke and those who have quietly sought solid foundations. Machiavelli, often misunderstood as cynical and ruthless, was actually a realist who sought to warn us. He did not urge us to imitate wolves, but to avoid becoming blind sheep. He showed us the world as it was, to help us defend ourselves and navigate a complex and challenging social context. Awareness is the first step to escaping this game, but a second step is also necessary: concrete action. This involves creating spaces in politics, in businesses, and in communities where competence is rewarded, where doubt is considered a value, where deep thinking is not ridiculed, but welcomed with attention and respect. It means, also on a personal level, rejecting shortcuts of superficial judgment, training patience and listening skills, and choosing to surround ourselves with those who challenge and stimulate us, rather than those who flatter and comfort us. Yes, this requires significant effort and a certain determination. But every alternative leads us directly to a world where appearance dominates, arrogance prevails, and truth becomes merely an option. If we truly wish to change course, we must begin here and now, not in the palaces of power, but in the consciousness of each of us. Because power, the authentic and lasting kind, always arises in the mind of the observer. And you, what do you choose to see in this complex and challenging scenario? These reflections invite us to greater awareness and collective responsibility. We can no longer passively accept the power dynamics that rise above us, but must actively seek to redefine the criteria for leadership and success. Only through this commitment and transformation can we hope to build a future where excellence is not relegated to the margins, but instead becomes the core of our true progress and evolution as a society.